Okay, thank you everybody for coming. We have Dr. Janet Kittle, our Deputy Athletic Director for Internal Operations and Overseer of Women's Lacrosse, and our new Women's Lacrosse coach, Brianne Tierney. We'll start with opening comments from Dr. Kittle.
Well, I couldn't be more pleased with the results of a national search for the first women's lacrosse coach at Kent State University. Brianne comes to us with a wealth of experience as a Division I player, as a Division I assistant coach, as a person who has started a program, which is a really unique and special qualification as you start a program, so you know the ins and outs of doing it the second time. And she also happens to have been the operations director for a very prominent men's program, and that person's head coach, or that head coach, is her dad. So when she was at Denver, she handled all of the operations, which is also really critical in starting a program. We're really looking forward to Brianne bringing that wealth of knowledge and that experience to Kent State, and without further ado, you're on.
Hi, everyone. I just want to obviously thank President Warren and Mr. Nielsen and Dr. Kittle for this opportunity, and I'm thrilled to be the women's lacrosse coach at such a fine university and a place that is willing to support a women's lacrosse program in such a big way. You know, the growth of the sport is tremendous, for Kent State University to add women's lacrosse, it's a huge step for Ohio lacrosse, especially northeastern Ohio. As Janet said, I've worked at a number of institutions, colleges and universities, as a assistant coach, a head coach, a director of operations, and we've kind of been all over the country. I've started a program at Lebanon Valley College, and hopefully can bring some of those lessons here to Kent State. And obviously I've watched firsthand as my husband has started a men's lacrosse program up in Cleveland State University, and been able to see some of the challenges he's faced, as well as some of the highlights. Saturday being his last game of his first season and getting his first Division I win was huge, and hopefully, you know, we'll see some of that same success in 2019, which seems far away, but there's a lot to be done between now and then. Obviously, we're going to hit the ground running with recruiting the finest student athletes we can get, and looking forward to bringing in really good people to start this culture off right, and get the right people in place to have a program that can bring us to the top of Division I. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to getting started.
All right, we'll open up questions. We ask that you use the stick mic just for our viewers at home so they can hear the questions as well.
Just you know, this seems like such a kind of one of those things that's just kind of meant to be type thing. Just the fact that you're here and Kent State's looking for a coach. Just kind of, can you both just talk about how this came about and how nice it fell into place, I guess you could say.
Sure. I mean, I agree. This is the dream come true, right? It's when two coaches get married, you know, you sort of make some sacrifices for each other's careers, and we've been back and forth all over the country. And when we moved to Cleveland, for Dylan, it was coming home. You know, he went to high school at Western Reserve, so he's from here. And for me, it was an opportunity for him to be a Division I head coach, and sort of was like, I'll get my chance one of these days. And so for Kent State to then shortly thereafter announce that they're starting a women's lacrosse program, personally, you know, it couldn't have been better. Janet and my dad have a long relationship, and have known each other for a long time through the lacrosse world. It's a very small world once you get in it, and so that relationship led to Janet giving me a call and us sort of getting to know each other. And I had the opportunity to come down and watch a field hockey game in the fall and check out campus and really see what the plan was for lacrosse.
So her dad was at Princeton winning championships when I was supervising both men's lacrosse and added women's lacrosse at Syracuse. And that's the connection. Basically, the Syracuse men's program and the Princeton men's program traded national championships pretty regularly, with Virginia entering in there with the orange also.
I mean, as you mentioned, you started the program at LVC, and you said you can bring some of that into this. But Kent, it seems like a bigger operation.
Sure.
I mean, how, also bringing stuff in, but what do you think you'll need to learn to be able to adapt to developing a Division I program?
Well, you're right. It's another level, right? It's when I was hired there, it was August, and we were playing that spring. So it was just finding kids on campus who had heard of the sport, essentially, and trying to teach them how to play. The opportunity here has a lot more resources behind it, but with that comes a little bit more pressure, right? So you hope that that early on you can get the talent that is going to be able to compete quickly at a high Division I level, and a lot of that with recruiting now is taking chances on kids, right? And so it's going to be trying to find the right student athletes for Kent, who's going to be successful at Kent State University, and speaking with other coaches and speaking with support staff and trying to find who's going to be successful on campus here as a student, and then second as an athlete.
And how does it change recruiting? As most of the time recruiting, you're recruiting for the next year, but
Sure.
here it's kind of in advance. So how does it change, not really recruiting for seniors, but more lower level on the high school ages?
Well, the NCAA and the IWLCA, which is the Women's Lacrosse Coaches Association, just passed legislation that we are no longer recruiting sophomores and freshmen. So really the focus of everybody is juniors and seniors at this point. So we'll be in the mix with all the other Division I programs, looking at the same age kids.
Just talk about, I mean, obviously your family history with lacrosse, and how did that start? And just kind of talk about, obviously that's been a huge part of everybody in your family's life growing up.
Sure. Well, being I always say being the daughter of a coach and a lacrosse coach in general is one of the greatest ways to grow up. You're running around on the sidelines at practice. You're, running around at games. You have this sort of built-in kind of larger family unit in the team. And growing up, my dad was the men's lacrosse coach at Princeton University, so I was always around it. Subsequently, both of my brothers played for my dad and have coached at some level. My brother Trevor runs Denver Elite Lacrosse out in Colorado, and was a college coach in his own right for quite a bit of time, and runs LXTC Training Center, which is more lacrosse and box lacrosse. My brother Brendan works at Nike out in Oregon, and coached some high school lacrosse upon his graduation from Princeton. My sister is a basketball coach at a high school in New Jersey. So it's kind of stayed in all of our blood. I think you go to college, and if you're an athlete, once that's done, once your college experience is done, and you're no longer able to play your sport, you sort of wonder how you can still stay involved. And for me, coaching was the logical next step. I started out at Monmouth University as an assistant coach, was out at Berkeley for a year, and beyond that was at Lebanon Valley and Denver and Lafayette. So I've kind of been all over, and because that's what's comfortable. I married a coach as well, so I think, again, it's one of the greatest ways to grow up, and having just had a son, I'm looking forward to him being on the sidelines of 2 teams, and having him grow up around that as well.
I have a question. How many Division I programs are there? And this might be for Janet, where are we going to play? I mean, we're going to get in a league, or we're going to be traveling all over? How's that going to work out here?
Yes. We have applied for membership in a conference, and stay tuned. I think we'll be able to announce our acceptance next week. So we're excited about that. There's a guaranteed 6 home games, and they will be played on a new AstroTurf at Murphy Mellis Field. We'll share with field hockey, and both Kathleen and Heather played lacrosse, so we're excited about that. And I heard just at the meet and greet a little while ago that Coach Marinero and the soccer people have brought in, or are bringing in, a couple of dual sport athletes, so we'll see if we can do a little sharing. Abby's saying no back there. You may get overruled.
Well, that's huge, right? That's part of, when you're starting a program, are you in a league? Are you in a conference? And is there going to be more to play for at the end of the season? And that's very important, so that's definitely a priority.
You can't tell us that, Janet. It's okay.
We'll tell you next week.
Okay, we'll come back.
Obviously, you've seen kind of the growth of the men's game out in Denver during your time there, but how do you think having a Division I women's program in this area can kind of spark participation numbers among high school girls?
That's a great question, and credit to OSHA and the state has just recently. This is the first year where women's lacrosse is a sanctioned sport in the state of Ohio. So the sport is certainly growing and supported, but at the same time, I think having a Division I program provides opportunities for high school and younger kids to come out and watch Division I games, watch the sport at its highest level. And also for us to run camps and clinics, and not just youth camps and clinics, but coaches clinics, and things for officials on campus, so that as the sport grows, as kids continue to grow and get better, we can make the coaches and the officiating better in the area as well. So I think it's going to be phenomenal for the area, and we're looking forward to getting that outreach going.
As a coach, how do you think you'll best deal with the challenges of getting girls to be in your team, and with recruiting, to bring players in from a high school age to a program that hasn't existed in the past?
Sure, I think it's a unique opportunity, right? On the women's lacrosse side of things, there are a lot of new programs, but I do think Kent State separates itself in that it's a great university with so many academic programs that student athletes can get excited about and look into for their future, and the undergrad programs that they can study here are vast and obviously strong in fashion and nursing and pre-med, and as well as being an affordable university. And first as a coach, you are selling your program, right? So talking about the culture we want early on. We want to be successful. We want to be playing for a conference championship, and beyond that, playing for a national championship. And we want to be doing that early. So, trying to get the right kids on board with that, and self-motivated individuals, self-disciplined, strong, good families. That's what I'm looking for in student athletes, and hopefully they, in turn, are drawn to Kent State University.
I'd like to add to that. I think it's a matter of getting the right student athletes, as Brianne said. She's going to inherit a list of about 100 young women that have already sent us information and filled out a questionnaire that's been on our website for over a year. I'm delighted to say that soon they'll be going directly to her. We've probably had a dozen young ladies on campus for unofficial visits. So there's much interest, and it'll be up to Brianne to watch the film, to watch them in person, and to get to know them better to decide who are the right people.
Just what's the roster size for lacrosse, and how many scholarships do you have to divide up?
They're 30 to 35, probably more on the 25 to 30 for that first year. And then there are 12 scholarships overall, with hopefully a division over those first 3 or 4 years, so that you don't stack and end up at year 4 with nothing to offer.
I have one more too. Just, I mean, I know it's early, but do you have like a timetable of sorts, like this is what we want to do by this point? Anything like that? Have you established any of that yet?
No, you don't know me very well. I have a fast trigger. Everything should have happened, 6 months ago. But we had a lot of success at Syracuse. We added 3 women's sports, and we did it exactly this way with a year leading up to it. Brianne was here on Friday for the NADC meetings and for the auction, and I gave her furniture catalogs and Under Armour catalogs and stacks of gear, and we'll just go at this as quickly as budget and time allow. But being already a little bit behind the 8 ball on recruiting, that's certainly going to be her priority. And a young man that's 3 weeks old.
Yeah. I think to Janet and Joel's credit, they've done a ton of research and put in the right steps for this program to be successful, and certainly the right plan is in place for me to follow and to continue building on this foundation that they've started, obviously. That's the hope when you come in, that all the ducks are in a row for a program like this to get going, and I'm confident that they are.
Just a little bit about the search. Was there a certain point you can pinpoint where you realized that you had the person that you wanted to help lead this program?
Last October. Well, I mean, frankly, having been in the lacrosse community all my life, as Brianne said, it's very small. We did a national search, and when you feel like you know that you have the right person, you always think and hope that if there's a better candidate out there, that person emerges. Here she is.
Any other questions? All right, thank you everybody for coming out, and thank you guys for taking questions today.
Thank you.
Thanks.